Okay, kids, it's time for another episode of the Fueled by Weird podcast, the only podcast where we don't concern ourselves with the frame rate. Welcome to the season premiere of season 4, and what better way to kick things off by introducing Billy Ellmore to the show. Billy, how's it going, man?
Hey, it's going all right. How are you?
I'm doing good. I'm very glad to meet you. I'm glad we were able to make this happen.
Likewise.
Absolutely. All right, man. So usually I like to start these things off with an icebreaker question. So today's icebreaker question, if you could pick anywhere in the world, where would you live?
If I could pick anywhere in the world,
Anywhere in the world to live, where would you want to live?
man, that's it's a tricky thing because I've moved around
Okay.
and I think I've found my spot. The only problem is I live in New York City, and man, it's a hell of a city.
That's what I
I've been
hear.
here. I've been here. Let's see, about 13 years now.
Okay.
Um, which is bragging rights in itself. It has everything you could ask for.
Yeah.
It's just expensive, man.
I hear
So
that.
I wish we could bring that down. If I could live anywhere just for natural beauty and just calm and peace, I would. Iceland looks amazing to me.
Okay.
And some of the really cool music has come out of there.
It's true.
But frankly, I think from moving around, I've found my niche and I've found my spot as long as it doesn't push me out with the financial issues.
Yeah, I hear that. I got a lot of friends in New York and they say it's pretty rough. They love living there, but it's just too damn expensive to live there.
Absolutely. It's insane.
Crazy. Well, I think if I had to pick somewhere, I'm not gonna go as I'm not gonna go that way where I'm gonna leave the country completely. I think what I would do is I would just pick somewhere where it's not too hot, it's not too cold, and there's no snow. Because snow, I hate snow. Very like I think
Mm,
being a homeowner, there's two things I hate doing, and it's shoveling snow and mowing my lawn.
yeah.
Something that a lot of people like doing.
I like to mow lawns, to be honest with you.
I did it a lot as a kid. Um, and yeah, I just sometimes it's just like, oh, I don't really want to do this. But if I had to live somewhere, I'd want to live maybe like Washington or Oregon, just
Okay.
so there's not a bunch of snow, it's not super hot. Because I like living where I live now because it gets really cold and I don't have anything crazy like random lizards or snakes or scorpions or giant spiders to have to
Sure.
deal with, which a lot of people have to deal with that. And some people don't mind dealing with that, but I am not a fan of any of that stuff. So
Yeah.
as
So
long as
no
I can,
Australia for you.
no, 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 no. I always like to say I like to live where the air hurts my face, and that's why is because I don't have to worry about giant snakes or just waking up
Yeah.
and having a lizard in my house. I would creep me the hell out. So just
Right.
somewhere where it's not super hot, not super cold, not a lot of snow. I'm down. That's where I want to go.
Feel you, man.
All right. So Fueled by Weird is a show where we like to talk about, the stuff that makes you who you are, your hobbies, your interests, all that kind of stuff. So what do you like to do in your downtime? What's some of the things you like to do? We just kind of talked about before we went live that you like wrestling. Um,
Hmm.
you're just getting back into wrestling. What are
Yeah.
some of the other things that you like doing?
Well, my biggest thing is I collect vinyl
Okay.
uh, records.
Nice.
I've been doing it. I think I started collecting around 2007,
Oh wow. Okay.
um, and it was originally, whatever, any kind of vinyl. I would take donations from people,
Yeah,
but
yeah.
after a while, I drilled down because my collection started getting so massive that
I'm sure.
I've drilled into only collecting really 80s vinyl.
Okay.
There are some things I pick up when I go see a live show and I want to support the band or something, but
Yeah.
um, yeah, I have quite a large collection, probably like 5 or 6 thousand vinyls.
Oh wow.
And I would say 80% of that is really just obscure 80s vinyl.
Nice.
Um, I think it's really cool because a lot of this stuff it's a cheap way to collect because a
Yeah.
lot of this stuff nobody cares about anymore. You go to the $1. I'm always the guy at the $1 bin at the record store because that's what I want is the
There's some
stuff
good
that
stuff in there.
absolutely you find
Yeah,
all
yeah.
sorts of cool stuff.
Mhm.
But but just like also it's I'm not looking for the Duran Duran or like the well-known names. I'm looking for
Yeah.
something that just looks pure, ridiculous, fun 80s. And it's like for me, I just collect and collect and collect, and I just put it on the shelf, which is my have not listened to shelf. And then every week I just go through and I randomly grab a record, and it's like reshopping for it because I forgot I bought it, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And then I crack it open and listen to it. Sometimes it's a band I've absolutely never heard of, and it's this really fun experience of hearing something that quite possibly hasn't been listened to in 40 years, you know.
Yeah.
It's a fun way to kind of step into a time capsule. So that's like my biggest passion is collecting and listening to my 80s record collection.
That's cool, man. I've just actually just got into vinyls myself, just almost over the past, not quite a year yet.
Yeah.
I don't have quite as extensive a collection. I have a few handpicked things, but I think a couple of my 80s ones are probably a couple of the older Metallica ones.
Oh, cool.
Master of Puppets and Ride the Lightning are two of the ones I have.
Very cool.
Two of the, in my opinion, the better Metallica albums. I mean,
Absolutely.
there's a bunch that are really good, and there's a couple of stinkers, and some people that know me recently, I got in a fight on Facebook about I'll defend Saint Anger.
Oh yeah.
It's a hill I'm gonna die on because that album people hate it so very much, but I like it. I just like the fact that it's so raw and you can feel all the emotion in it, and it's just I don't know. Tons of people didn't like the snare drum. Tons of people just didn't like the way they kind of changed things, but I like it. It's a raw and aggressive album, and if you're feeling kind of angry, that's the song. That's the album I'll put on and just kind of get some of those angry emotions out with. But yeah,
Brilliant.
very cool. All right, man. So I want to take a trip in the Wayback Machine. I
Yeah,
want to
sure.
kind of go back to the time where you decided, what was it that made you decide to want to get into movie making?
Well, I mean, I've been making little home movies my whole life, basically.
Mhm.
Well, not my whole life. I would say maybe we grew up with very little money for a while. There's no home movies of me as a kid, which is unfortunate because I was an
Yeah.
awesome kid and I wish I could see those things.
Really?
But our family couldn't afford a video camera in the 90s, I suppose. And my father bought just a regular camcorder that I got into stop motion animation um, with his camera. So it was literally just like pausing, moving an action figure, unpausing, moving the action figure.
Yeah.
Um, it was just I had so much fun with that, making these little things. So then, my friends and I started making in high school. Just in our spare time, we wanted to make little funny goofball skits on camera. So we had a couple that were big for our school. People knew about them and enjoyed them. Stupid little things that, looking back, I am almost embarrassed to watch. Um, but yeah, those I think what really got me into wanting to make films was I did a short film in 2009 with the same team that I'm working with now. Um, and that was a more serious endeavor with a script that I had come up with on my side. And it was a short film that we were trying to get into Sundance. We were trying to get into festivals in general. Once again, which is my MO, it was very 80s themed. It was about a guy who felt like he didn't fit in to his time frame and didn't have any friends. Well, he had one good friend, but other than that, he wasn't good at social situations um, because he felt like he didn't fit in. And he thought he could build a time machine based on his knowledge from movies like Back to the Future and such.
Yeah.
Um, in the end, he basically fries himself by hooking himself up to this machine. But it was that film that really made me want to explore filmmaking more and work with these talented people that I work with. I'm more of the idea man myself. I have the friends and the team that are more involved with the video work. Um, my day job is working in advertising. So I'm
Nice.
kind of yeah, sometimes I feel a bit like a sellout. You know, when you go to art school and then you get a job, you know, like in the Mad Men field, you feel kind of like you sold out a bit, but it is what it is.
Sure. Very cool.
But that's yeah, I mean that's basically it for what sparked my interest in the genres or in
Just
the medium.
just you've kind of just always been making movies. That's very cool.
Yeah, I mean, it just I like being hands-on with that sort of thing, and I like having documentation of ideas. Whether or not they're good ideas is to be debated, but
Yeah. I understand that all too well. And yeah, also as a kid who grew up in the 90s, yeah, it was kind of hard to get, any kind of footage or any kind of a documentation on video more than just, pictures. I know growing up, my dad, he had all his family back in Wisconsin. And so what he would do is
that's actually where
every,
I'm from originally.
oh, that's cool. From what part?
I am I am born and raised in Sheboygan, Wisconsin.
Nice. My dad's from Milwaukee.
It's about an hour away.
Nice.
Sheboygan's an hour north of Milwaukee.
Nice. Yeah, he's got a whole bunch of his family still out there that I've met a handful of them just a couple of times. It's kind of weird that, we've never had a chance to meet. And so it's what he would do is around every Christmas time, about this time of year, he worked at a place that had a camcorder. I think that's how he got it. I don't really remember, and I never got the chance to ask him, but he would every this time every year he'd bring a camcorder home, or some kind of a video camera, one of those big ones where you put over your shoulder.
Oh, sure.
And he would just like record my family just doing just everyday stuff. And, he'd go around town and just, take a look at everything going on in town. And he'd always make up a video and send it out to my relatives just to kind of let them know how life is, in my town. And it's kind of a cool thing. And we never really got to watch him before he sent them. He just sent them off. And, now all these years later, I don't even know if they exist anymore. Um, but it would be cool to find out if they still exist and maybe get them transferred from VHS to like digital or DVD or something
Mhm.
like that, just to kind of rewatch them and kind of show my own kids and my wife kind of what life was like back then. Well, my wife would know, but my kids, they don't really know how life was for us 90s babies, back in the day. So they wouldn't really know. It'd be kind of cool to see that.
And I think it's interesting too because today the world is so oversaturated with documentation.
Yeah.
You know, everything is recorded now.
Hmm.
You know, nobody has it's almost like our memories are you know degrading because
Yeah.
we are constantly giving ourselves photographic proof of things that I think that kids might not even appreciate. And you know, like
I
if
agree.
I see something that's older, like if I see my father video of him,
Yeah.
old 8 millimeter footage or something, um, I think that wow, that's so cool. But like kids don't get it today because they're so used to well, everything's of course. You know what I
Yeah, of
mean? So
course
I
you
think
have
that's
that,
such an interesting, yeah, I think that's
Yeah.
such an interesting thing. And people will be surprised when I will say, like, oh no, I don't have any video of myself. The youngest maybe is 13 years old or something like that.
Yeah.
So it's interesting how that works.
Yeah, and I think I agree with you about the whole, memory degrading thing, because I know the last couple of concerts I went to, I spent a whole bunch of the show just, recording it on my phone or taking pictures with my phone. I'm like, why am I not just sitting here just like absorbing this experience? Like I'm taking all these videos and I'm probably not going to watch them later, so I'm not sure why
Yeah.
I'm taking these videos other than to share with people to show that I was here. But it's like I should just, sit back and just enjoy the show because, I can take this in and I can remember it better than just, record. If I record it, that's a horrible experience just spending the whole time, watching it through my phone.
It's almost like it's almost like a chicken or egg scenario, right?
Yeah.
So you're like, I'm taking this video so I can watch it later and remember it. But like, you know, would you not have remembered it?
Yeah, exactly.
Or are you only not remembering it because you spent the time? You know, like I
Yeah,
just
yeah.
I think it's interesting because I'm the same way. I if it's a band I've never seen before, if I've seen them before, I don't film. But if it's a band I've never seen before, I film a lot because I'm like,
Yeah.
well, this is a really cool experience and I want to make sure I document it.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
then you're right, we don't really go back and watch them I I do because I have an Instagram account that I like will post like my concert videos to,
Yeah, yeah.
but I know that the average person is not going back and rewatching these videos
Oh
like
no. They'll see it on
so.
like Facebook memories a year later or 5 years later.
Right.
That's about
Which
it.
I mean I enjoy those to
Oh,
be
I do
honest.
too.
I
Yeah, yeah,
I
yeah.
think they're great,
Yeah.
but
Yeah, I've had some real doozy memories that kind of kick me in my ass, and
sure.
I get all caught up in my feels. But there are some that I'm like, oh yeah, I remember this. This was an awesome day. Or just recently, I had one that's like, just got off this big phone call, kind of nervous, kind of excited for the future. I'm like, shit, I don't remember what that was.
Right.
I just need to get better at documentation, I guess. But yeah, Facebook memories is kind of a blessing and a curse, to be honest.
Yep.
All right, man. So. Um, I want to roll into the reason we're here today. We're talking about your upcoming movie, 80's Babies. It's a
Correct.
documentary, showcasing, people nowadays, reliving the glory days of the 80's. So, um, I think it's a really cool project, and I'm really glad I was able to talk to you about it. And the reason I found out about it is because one of the featured people in your movie, Manny Danger, who was a good friend of mine, that's how I heard it from, and I said that's kind of a really cool idea. So let's talk about, you know, let's talk about the movie for those that don't know what 80's the 80's Babies documentary is. Let's kind of talk a little bit about what that's going to be.
Sure. Um, so generally speaking, when you think of 80s babies, I think a lot of people think, oh, that's someone who was born in the 80s,
Yeah, yeah,
who, either grew up in the 80s or they were a teen in the 80s or whatever. A lot of people want to take ownership of that name,
yeah,
80s babies. I picked it primarily because my focus in this film is on young people today. Young people who you would not expect to adopt this culture from a time that none of them were alive for.
yeah,
Um, so I really like I was saying earlier, my big thing is I collect records. So I had started an Instagram when COVID hit and we were all quarantined and everything. Everyone was coming up with things to do, right? Everyone wanted to
yeah,
keep themselves occupied. And I thought, well, I have all these thousands of records and I need to catalog them personally, just to get this shit on in check.
yeah,
And so I was like, well, why not, while I'm doing that, why not film, choose a song off an album, film it and put it on Instagram. And there's someone out there that's going to like it, some, person who grew up in that time that was like, oh shit, I haven't heard that song since I was 12 years old in my mom's
yeah,
basement or whatever. You know what I
yeah.
mean? And I thought,
Mhm.
this is a cool way to share this. So I started the Instagram account fully expecting, you know, an older crowd. And I started seeing these people that were really young. And I thought, well, this is interesting just to see young people. But then I started seeing, profile pictures that were either following or commenting or whatever that I was like, this person looks authentically 80s.
Yeah.
They have the style. So I would click on it and go and realize that they're living the lifestyle.
Hmm.
They've adopted the fashion, the music. It's not like, when I was growing up, um, teenager in the late 90s,
Yeah.
um, there were trends that came and went, like fashion trends. You know, it was big. I even was one myself, the pseudo hippie. We wore the Grateful Dead tie-dye t-shirts and corduroy pants and whatever.
Yeah. Hmm.
Um, those were kind of more like a sartorial fashion thing, like
Yeah.
I didn't live some kind of 60s lifestyle. In fact, I was a big poser and was faking being a Grateful Dead fan. I've never been a Grateful Dead fan.
Right.
But I would wear the shirts because it's what I want. Well, it was the image I wanted, right?
Sure.
So, at first I'm thinking that's what, these young people are doing until I get into it and I start seeing what these people are doing. They're, you know, not like not again not only that they've adopted fashion or music and all of that, but they like some of them have made it kind of like their life's work
Oh
to
yeah.
like for example Violet Sky, she's an archivist, right? So she's like making sure to get this obscure 80s music that you can't find anywhere else other than maybe some, like random YouTube video or something. She's
Yeah.
like bringing getting it brought back onto Spotify and places where people can listen to it and share it with people. um and it's everybody in this community, this whole like for a lack of a better term, this 80s community of people working together in this shared enjoyment. I'm sure you've heard of, I think it was called the most mysterious song on the internet for a while. And maybe you haven't heard, but it was
I haven't.
this song that everybody wanted to know, desperately wanted to know, what is this song? And no one could figure it out. Not no, Shazam would never figure it out. It was just such an obscure song. And eventually someone found out through Reddit or whatever. It was years in the making of working on it. They discovered who this song was, or that it was from a pornographic film from the 80's.
Oh.
And they discovered the artist. I believe his name is Christopher St. Booth, and he was in a band called Who's Who. And they recorded this song, and they did other, film scores and songs for soundtracks. Um, but once that was discovered, they've kind of had a boost in popularity again, this band. So
Cool.
it's interesting, in my opinion, that these young people are doing this work that's like revitalizing these lost artists that are
Yeah.
getting a second shot in the limelight. And I think it's really cool. This cross-generational bridge has been formed where, of course, you're going to have the people, the people that were growing up in that time that are like, that's not how they actually dressed. And that's just, there's a lot
Yeah.
of, everyone's got, wants to be negative on the internet, but there's a lot of cool stuff happening that's bringing people together. If it's even just, oh my God, that girl looks like this girl I went to school with back in the day that I had a major crush on. That's so cool. Just seeing that to me was really inspiring. So I
Yeah.
thought, man, I find it so interesting. Again, I find it so interesting because, for me, I was born in 1982. So,
84.
okay, cool.
Yeah, yeah.
So like you have memories of the 80's, like
Hmm.
they're distant memories, but you
Yeah, yeah.
have them.
Hmm.
And for me, that's that childhood nostalgia that like I was a real little kid, no troubles, no school,
Yeah.
all the fun stuff. And all those movies and all that pop culture from back then just makes me feel so warm and fuzzy. But these people, these young people, they don't have that,
Yeah.
you know? And I'm like curious, because I've asked some of them, I'm like, is this, was it from your parents? And some of them are like, no, my parents are not into this at all. They like 60s rock. Uh, so I think there's something interesting about that to me. To me, I think there's something special about the 80's, um, because not only is there this revivalist community,
Yeah.
but all the people that came up in that time, man, we're all so obsessed with that. We're so obsessed with the pop culture from that time. I mean, like
Yeah.
it's so feel good, and now you see it's all resurfacing again in Hollywood. Like we're making every sequel we can to every film franchise that
Yep.
ever came out. Um,
Yeah.
so I wanted to make a film where I explore all of that, the lives of these young people, how they're touching the lives of others from all different generations, and at the same time also speaking about how the 80's has this stay power that just won't quit, basically.
Yeah, definitely. And yeah, I'm gonna kind of draw back on Maddie a little bit because,
Hmm.
most recently she got married like a year or two ago, and I don't know if you've seen the videos or the pictures from
Oh
the
yeah,
wedding. It's fantastic. And actually,
absolutely.
I know her husband too.
Yeah.
They're great people. Um, it's funny to see all the comments and from everyone like, I wonder if they're still married all these years later. And it's like, it's cool that, people actually
Yeah,
think that it's a wedding from the 80's. Like
that is
it's,
authentic. Yeah.
oh yeah, absolutely. And it's funny because, like I said, I've met Maddie personally, and people wonder, like, like you said, is this like just like a poser kind of thing? Is she just doing it for the
Mhm.
aesthetic? She is not. She is full on, like she's embraced this wholeheartedly, and she's definitely one of the for sure pioneers to bring this back because she lives it every single day.
And I think that Maddie is like really cool because she doesn't fit in one box, you
Right.
know.
Yeah, yeah.
Um, we were kind of like when, I don't necessarily call it casting, but when we were looking for who we were interested in speaking to, and we ran across Maddie, um, we initially just thought, okay, goth, right?
Yeah,
Which
yeah.
is cool because we were looking for that, aesthetic.
Hmm.
Um, but then we realized that not only is she goth, but she's like crazy into 80s metal
Yeah.
too, which
She
is of
she
course
toes
something
the
that we
line
want to
right
touch
down
on.
the middle. Very good.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
And she's a car person, which we thought is really a unique and fun thing to
Yeah.
to talk about as well.
And
So,
to even add another layer to that, she works in IT,
yeah,
which is awesome. She's such a cool person, so many different things that she's into, and she's into it because she genuinely likes that stuff. It's not, like you said, she's not just living the aesthetic or just trying to be a poser. She
right.
really, she really is into that stuff.
And we've tried, our best to kind of vet that with people is,
Yeah.
when I spoke with Maddie, I was like, so just out of curiosity, what do you wear when you go to work? And she immediately sent me a picture of herself at work, and I was like, great. She's still full goth,
Yeah, yeah.
Um, of course, you got to tone it down a little bit for work, but like, that's kind of like one of the questions that we've put out to people is like, how do you dress when you go to work?
Yeah.
And if people are still going like some of our talent in the film, they'll go to work in like full on blouses with shoulder pads and
Yeah.
like that is what we're looking for is people that are committed, that this is not just a phase or a trend. It's like their lifestyle. It's their identity.
Yeah, I
So,
know Maddie used to work with me, and on her last day before she went and got to the work where she works now, she came in full, complete like corpse paint makeup, like totally
mhm.
metaled out. It was fantastic.
That's great.
So, we've kind of talked a little bit about, your vetting process, and, your quote unquote audition process, how you were able
Yeah,
to pick your people. How did you decide who specifically was going to be in the movie? I'm sure because I don't know very much, outside of Maddie because we're friends, but I'm sure there's tons of people out there who kind of still kind of fit in that same bubble you're looking for.
right. There are, and there are a lot of people who are very interested still to be in the film. Um, Really, what it was people that I've run into on social media that I've seen enough of them and then approach them about it. So, um, I think the first person that I had in mind for the film was, as I mentioned earlier, Violet Sky. She goes by Glitter Wave 80's on Instagram. Um, she struck me as really interesting because she has a singing career. And what I think is interesting about the singing career is that she can actually say that she makes quote unquote unique and actual official 80s music. And the reason being is that I mentioned earlier, she's an archivist, so she brings back this media and she gets it on Spotify and stuff. She had found this band. She had found vinyl from a group called Shy Talk, this pop rock outfit. This is kind of synthy. And she really liked it, and she started posting it to her socials and stuff, and people also appreciated it and were getting into it, and it caught the attention of one of the band members,
That's cool.
and yeah, the keyboardist, his name is David Bravo. He's also going to be in the film, and he reached out to Violet and he was like, "Look, I want to, thank you for exposing our music to a new generation." And then I don't know exactly how it came up, but he was like, "Look, do you sing at all? Are you musically inclined at all?" And she's like, "Yeah, I am a singer, actually." And he's like, because I've got all these songs that we put together back in the late 80s, early 90s on these like DAT tapes or whatever you call them. And he was like, I'd love to lay down some tracks with you.
Oh, wow.
And so she laid new vocals over the top of music that was recorded back in the 80s.
That's
Um,
awesome.
and I thought that was so unique and so cool
Yeah.
because you can say this is authentic 80s music.
Yeah.
Um, there's a little twist to it, but I thought that was really, really cool. And again, it brings you back to this bridge that has formed between generations because of course David Bravo being in a band in the 80s is likely in his 50s or potentially 60s at this point. So
Yeah.
um I thought that was really unique, and so she was the first person that I approached about it. And then it just was kind of like we wanted to, when you think of the 80s, you kind of think of certain groups of people, little I don't want to call them cliques or anything, but you have your new wave look, you've got your metal look, you've got
Yeah.
your prep look, things like that. So we started kind of thinking, well, we want to like cover all grounds. We want the hip hop aspect of things in there, and that's why we got Lee Rock Starsky. Um, and originally we had someone else prior to Maddie, picked out for heavy metal. I'm not sure if you're familiar with Heather Leather at all,
No.
but she's big metal, um, always posting from Whiskey a Go Go. But she ended up having scheduling conflicts and being really busy. So she dropped out of the project, and we thought, well, we want to fill this position. And I had recently, prior to that happening, saw Maddie's video from her wedding. And again, for a brief second, I was also uh, not quite sure,
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
think that's really cool. I think that uncertainty, there's so many filters and so many different apps these days that you can like make something as long as you've got the styling right,
For sure.
you know, a lot of times these are so convincing.
Yeah.
And then I started digging into Maddie's profile, and I thought I got to reach out to her because she's got, like I said, we wanted to have that metal aspect, but I also wanted goth in the film.
Yeah.
And so I thought she was the perfect person to choose to fill those shoes. So
Very cool. So you were able to kind of cover all the different genres and, all the different clicks from the 80s and got them all represented.
yeah,
That's cool. That's a good idea. Because, yeah, the 80s didn't just represent, rock and metal. There was lots of different things going on in the 80s. So
absolutely.
that's cool that you're able to get all the different bases covered. That's cool. So to help bring this project to life, you have a backer kit going right now. Let's talk a little bit
We
about the
do.
backer kit.
Yeah, let's talk about that. Well, unfortunately, at the moment, it's moving slowly. Um, we're doing everything we can to get those numbers up. As I mentioned earlier, being out in the cold, one of the things I was doing is a new guerrilla marketing attempt by putting up physical flyers with a QR code. Um,
Nice.
but basically, regardless of how the crowdfunding goes, we are dead set on making this film a reality. But it would be the best route for us to be crowdfunded.
Sure.
And so we are running the backer kit. It really is essentially our goal is $80,000, which is a pretty meager budget for a feature-length documentary film. Um, it is not the standard. There are some, crowdfunding sites that just ask for money, and you don't get anything in return. However, this is a reward system. So, of course, you may think prices are inflated, but we're giving a reward. It's not a purchase for items sort of thing. It's a reward for pledging to us and essentially donating. So,
Yeah.
um, we have all sorts of stuff available. Vinyl copies of the soundtrack, VHS versions of the film. Uh, we have cassette soundtrack. We have T-shirts. We have bumper stickers. We have all sorts of different things available. So you pledge whatever you feel comfortable with and whatever you want to receive as your reward. And ultimately, nobody gets charged anything until we have ended the campaign successfully. So that is one thing we are wondering is perhaps maybe starting the campaign during Christmas time. Money is tight for people, but we do offer pay over time, which is if you purchase anything over $150, you will make 4 monthly payments interest free on that item. And again, none of that will start until our campaign is officially funded and met its goal and ends on January 20th. So we're trying our best to offer really cool, exciting rewards for people outside of just making this film, which we think, is going to be something that people really enjoy. Um, but like I said, we're really slow right now, and we're doing our best to get the word out to people, because we know people are interested in seeing it. That much is very clear. We've gotten great great feedback, but we're just not seeing it in the numbers right now. And so we're hoping that any little thing that we can do will help increase the numbers. So that's why I'm out putting flyers up with cryptic messaging and things like that. So.
Which is a very 80s thing to do. So that's very cool.
Yeah, you gotta you gotta
You got to go flyer
be
the town,
meta
man.
about it.
Yeah, you got to get the street team, get the flyers out, let everybody know.
Exactly.
That's awesome. So, for those that might not know what backer kit is or how it works, from my understanding, because I don't fully understand it all the way,
Hmm.
it kind of works similar to Kickstarter, right?
Yeah. It's actually like an offshoot of Kickstarter, I believe. Um, I my understanding of Backer Kit is that it was originally part of Kickstarter when you'd finish a campaign, then the Backer Kit was a way to help you do your survey where you fill out, oh, I'm a extra
Okay.
large t-shirt and a blah 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 blah.
Yeah, yeah.
Then they broke apart and started their own crowdfunding uh, service. And so, yes, it works the same as Kickstarter, where you have pledge levels. Again, you donate or pledge how much you want for whatever reward tier that you're interested in, and then you are not charged anything until the campaign has successfully met its goal and ended. So that it's the same essential model as Kickstarter.
Same kind of general idea where you pay now and then, once the campaign's over, that's when the money comes.
Yeah, that's when the money will be taken
Okay.
out of your account is once it's over. You actually, of course, you have to give a credit card up front when you like pledge your money, but you aren't charged until the campaign is ended and once it has met its goals successfully.
Very cool. So it sounds like for the plans for what's next, you guys are just going to be trying to push for the backer kit, and regardless whether or
Yeah,
not you meet your numbers, you're going to be still spending quite a bit of time trying to get this movie going, which is awesome.
absolutely. Yeah, I mean, of course, there's other avenues for which we can acquire the funding. Um, but this is going to be the lowest lift on our end and you know, the most beneficial to us is crowdfunding. Outside of that, it's really hard to pitch an idea to get produced. Um, it's a lot of connections and getting to the right people, a lot of seeking out grant funding and things like that. But we figure the best route is to get interested people who are, involved with this scene, really want to make it happen, feel like they're a part of it. That's another
Yeah.
thing that we offer is if you want your name in the credits, you can buy that on the backer kit. You can buy a spot in the film. We have a reward tier that is you would get a little video cameo in the credits where you're answering a question about the 80s. Um, so little things like that you can feel like this is your own little movie too. This is well, I don't want to say little movie, but
Right. Yeah.
this
Yeah.
is this you're a part of this family, this 80s babies family, and we want everyone to feel like they're a part of it. And so we're hoping that we can do whatever we can to spread the word more, and get more people, more interest, and raise those numbers up.
Very cool. Well, where can we find you guys at when where can we keep up to date? Where can we go to find help spread the word?
Yeah,
Well, let's let the people know where to find you at.
absolutely. So as far as the backer kit itself, that of course there's going to be some backerkit.com, blah 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 blah.
Hmm.
I currently have the URL for the website. Will redirect you to our backer kit. So because it's a forwarded address, skip the www. Just type into your browser 80s, as in 80s, babiesmovie.com. So 80sbabiesmovie.com will take you to our backer kit, and all the information is laid out there. Um, there's quite a bit there as well. So scroll through, have a read, see what you feel about it. Hopefully you're on board to help us out, help us make this film. Outside of that, on Instagram, we are at 80s, 80s babies dot or 80s babies movie. And that's the same on Facebook and TikTok.
Very cool. Now, before I let you go, I want to see if you can share one bit of advice with us. Let's see if we can get some advice from you about people who want to be creative, people who want to get out there and
Yeah,
make their own project. What's some advice that you would share?
do it. Just that, not to like
That's
borrow from Nike or something, but
advice.
just do it.
Yeah, yeah,
Um, I think that a lot of people, even myself, sometimes I get caught up in this imposter syndrome, this feeling like, oh, it's not ready, or oh, who am I to make this thing?
yeah.
If you don't, someone else is going to make it.
Yep.
Um, or not. But I mean, even if not, like at least you tried. That's, you know, I have tried and failed so many times in
Sure.
life, but I keep trying, because when you do succeed, the feeling of succeeding from something that you conjured in your own mind,
Yeah,
God, it feels good.
absolutely.
It really feels so good, to have people appreciate something that you came up with. Um, and if you're looking to be creative, and just any person gives you some sort of positive feedback, it feels so good.
It means a lot, man.
So
Someone takes
there's
the
nothing
time to
to
tell
there's
you.
nothing to lose by, like, you only have anything to lose by not doing it.
Yeah,
So just do it.
for sure. Yeah, and that when someone takes a minute to tell you, how much they appreciate the thing you're doing, it
Right.
means the world. Just, the fact that someone took time out of their day to like throw me like, hey, like, thanks for doing what you do. Like, it's incredible feeling.
Absolutely.
Very cool, man. Well, make sure everybody out there listening, make sure you hit 80sbabies.com, Facebook, Instagram,
80sbabiesmovie.com. Sorry.
80sbabiesmovie.com. Sorry.
Yep.
Um,
No worries.
I'll make sure to put that in the show notes so everyone can find it. You go find them on Facebook, find them on Instagram, find them on TikTok. Go check out the backer kit. If you can't support, that's okay. Make sure you share it, spread the word out, let people know who might be interested in this movie. Let's find that pocket of people is out there, folks. So let's get them back, let's get them funded, and let's help spread the word. So before I let you go, I want to take a minute to thank Polygon Horizon. Their song Pizza Force is the song I use for the show. Go check them out on Bandcamp. They're a great band. They're fantastic. You can find Fueled by Weird on Instagram and Facebook. You can also shoot me an email at fueledbyweird@gmail.com. You can find the show on YouTube, Spotify, wherever you get your podcasts. And now you can find me on the Spotlight Media GA app, along with the rest of the Stay Weird Network shows, the Nerdy Manroom show with Hassel and Monster, Hassel's Review, and Big Rob's House of Entertainment and No Chinese Food. Now, the Stay Weird Network, it's a brand new podcast network dedicated to bringing some awesome back to the internet. Check us out at Stay Weird Network on YouTube and Instagram, and you can email us at stayweirdnetwork@gmail.com. And I want to thank my sponsors, the Zone Collectibles in Tifton, Georgia. They're your one-stop shop for comics, collectibles, and so much more. If you like the show, please like, comment, subscribe, leave a review, and tell your friends because word of mouth is my friend. And remember, kids, life's too short to be normal, so stay weird. Billy, thanks so much for joining me tonight, man.
Hey, thank you so much for having me, Chris.
Absolutely.